Alright everybody, if you like reviews that's more than just "it sucked" or "it was great," click that like button, click that share button, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Let's start with the costumes. First, Batman. The pros, it was more realistic and gadget friendly. I did like the idea of a wingsuit and parachute to help him get down from high buildings. The cons, I'm not a fan of the chest symbol and think it's my least favorite suit of the Batman suits since Michael Keaton times until now. Next, Catwoman. Pros, it's also more realistic and slim, but not trying to be too sexy. I didn't mind the idea of just a torn ski mask, because that also helps with it being more real. Cons, it wasn't very memorable. Next up, the Riddler. Pros, his was also more realistic than previous Riddlers. I like the idea of a basic military costume that can be generic enough to help the idea of the Riddler being more of an idea than a person. Cons, it was also not memorable and could change and nobody would notice. Okay, next up, the Penguin. Pros, great work by the makeup department. So good Colin Farrell is almost unrecognizable. The cons, the suit choices weren't that great. Next up, the Batmobile. It's not really a costume, but let's count it as one. With this, it was more realistic out of all the Batmobiles. It didn't have to focus on being futuristic or bulky. It had a Back to the Future DeLorean kind of feel to it. The cons, could have shown more gadgets and things it was capable of besides going fast. Next part of the review, the music. Pros, good change of pace throughout. Michael G was good at putting different vibes of music during the corresponding scenes and building tension before it happens. The cons, needed more orchestral music as well as better choices of club music. It could have had a better soundtrack and maybe see about raising the volume more during a lot of the heavy music scenes. Next section of the review, the environments. Now, for the environments, they didn't really keep me entertained. Could have been the editor's fault of too many close-ups, or could have been location scouts, who knows. To me, it just seemed like a combination of New York and Chicago, more than thinking I'm in Gotham. Next part of the review, the story. For me, the pros is it didn't waste people's time of telling the origin story again because he starts off as Batman. Another thing I like is this movie gives Batman more of a role as a detective and has him go to the crime scenes and look for clues. I do feel this would have been cooler if they had made it like the video game Arkham Asylum, where his visor activates and you go from there, but then again, I do feel they were trying to keep it as real as possible. Another pro is I liked how they started making it feel like the Riddler was an idea and not just a single person, and that it could be anybody who was leaving the clues. The cons is that the Batman and the Catwoman romance felt fake and rushed, even though it was a movie that was over 3 hours long. This movie could have also used more action scenes spaced throughout. Some parts I was literally fighting not to go to sleep in the theater. It could also use more memorable scenes besides the action scenes to make people leave the theater like, that scene was crazy, and then remember the other scene? Not just head straight to their car. It also didn't leave me with a feeling that any scene had to be seen in the theater, like if it was made with an IMAX or used a red quality camera. Just think opening scene of The Dark Knight. Final part of the review, the characters. Let's start with the Penguin. Colin Farrell was great as the Penguin. Gave the role a tough guy attitude while still making you believe that the Penguin didn't take things too serious and can joke with people before he gets violent. I'm looking forward to seeing him in future Batmans because I do feel he didn't get enough screen time. But word on the street is he's working on something as the Penguin for HBO Max. Next up, James Gordon. Jeffrey Wright was a pretty believable Gordon, but not enough to break out of my mind from seeing him playing poker with James Bond. This is also the same problem John Turturro had playing Carmine Falcone. John Turturro gets stuck in the group of people that didn't have a breakout role and had me thinking he wasn't tough at all and was more likely to help Autobots than take over Gotham. Next up, the Riddler. Paul Dano didn't do too bad, but I wouldn't say he's the best Riddler. Jim Carrey played a different type of Riddler, but if they played the same type, Dano would be nowhere close. I didn't buy that he was crazy or smart, just basic, and actually disappointed when the Riddler was actually revealed. Next up, Catwoman. Zoe Kravitz is just straight sexy, so a wise choice for Catwoman. Felt her acting was great for the role she was given, but just had to fight with what could be poor writing from the script and bad CG fighting from what seems like kicks that could have been performed by her or a stunt person. Finally, let's review the Batman. Robert Pattinson surprised me a lot in this role. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt and wasn't let down. I think he had a great voice as Batman and could pass as Bruce Wayne too. My only problem with him as Bruce Wayne is I wouldn't see him as being a billionaire playboy and instead see him as a quiet gothic kid, which maybe is what they were going for due to his origin story. The main positive is I didn't mentally think about him being in Twilight the whole movie. Overall, I say he's at the bottom of Bruce Wayne / Batman's, but he does pass as being one. Finally, let's do the movie as a whole. On a scale of 1 to 100, I would give this a 75. There's lots of room for improvement on things like more action scenes, more Penguin character development, and more Riddler mystery, but they did great in keeping the whole movie down to earth and real, while still making Pattinson a believable Batman, which many had their doubts before this movie. On a side note, they also could have used the after credit scene to elaborate on the introduction of the Joker more rather than waste people's time with the end in Riddler font. So, what'd you guys think of the movie? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you like Pattinson as the Batman? Do you think they should have elaborated more on the Penguin as the villain? You know what to do. Leave a comment, smash that like button, and share for more reviews to come. Till next time.